Welcome back, everybody, to another video. I'm your humble host, Picaso. Thanks for joining in. Today we are back again with the Fighting Temptation videos that I've been doing, or mini series, or what you want to call it. We're on day 3. It should be June 2nd, of course. But I did start this a bit late. If you're just tuning in and this is the first video you're seeing, then of course there are 2 previous videos, day 1 and day 2, which day 2 was yesterday respectively, I should say day 2 was June 2nd and day 1 was June 1st. Okay, disregard the date here. It's when I actually started. I was going to do it by myself, and I decided to share it with everybody because I'm not just the only person who struggles with temptation. It does say porn temptation beaten here. That is the plan that we are on, which is a very big one here. And of course I have struggled with this, but I'm just using this basis to represent all forms of temptation, right? Okay, so we are on day 3. And forgive me again because I do take notes. We have a devotional. We have 3 scriptures to go through. Okay, so without any further ado, this one is going up a little bit late today because me and the family were out and we kind of got held up, and so apologies that it's coming up so late during the day. Of course I have to edit it and then publish it and then it will go up, but it will be up. Okay, so let's go and dive in with the devotional. Okay, here we go. So it says, devotional. It's titled The Broom Way of Beating Porn Temptation. Okay, and like I've been saying, any type of temptation. Broom is an imaginary of judgment for me. In my language, Tamil, right, the person who is doing the devotional, this phrase is used by an exasperated person. I will beat you with a broom. I'm Jamaican, and that sounds very familiar to me as well. There are times when God gets really angry at the stubborn behavior of his children, rightfully so. In Psalms 78, we read of one such occasion. But before their bellies were soothed, while their mouths were still full of food, God's wrath came at them like a tidal wave and swallowed some of the bravest, strongest among them and quieted the youth of Israel. Verses 29 to 32. Okay, it says the voice. Now notice here that the food that God did not want them to eat was still in their mouth. It was still in the mouth of the youth of Israel. So God didn't want them to eat that food, and even before they finished, they received his wrath. That's when God's patience got exhausted. He had given them many changes, and now I believe that should be chances. And now he decided to act in judgment. He decided to go the broom way. He struck down the youth who were given into desires of their bodies, without thinking about their maker of He struck down the youth who were giving into desires of their body without thinking about the maker of their body, Yahweh. They died when they were still in the sin of eating that food they shouldn't have eaten. In the same way, God can very well act that way when we give in to the lust of the flesh and consume porn. Right? Or give in to any temptation and consume that sin. But if he did not do that, it's not because it was okay. He was only giving us time to repent. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9. Okay, forgive me here. Let me write this down. Psalm 78 was the first one. Psalms chapter 78. And this was the, let's see, that's verse 29 to 32. I like to take notes. I like to go over them when everybody's asleep and I'm awake. I'm the only one awake. Sometimes I'm up till 3, 4 in the morning. And I go over my notes. I go over anything that I was studying, and I just play it back and I keep it circulating. But moving on, it says, but he can decide to strike us when we are in the act of porn watching or falling to any temptation. He can decide to return to the earth when we are in the midnight hour of porn surfing, temptation of any sorts. The knowledge of Jesus would come back to the world as unexpectedly as a thief should motivate us to live holy, because of course we don't know when he's going to come back. This was Peter's point in 2 Peter 3:10-11. So that is, again, 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10-11. And that was his point there, that we don't know. Okay. Hyper grace cult false teachers take exception to this motivation to live holy, but this method is soundly biblical. One motivation for New Testament believers not to fall is 1 Corinthians 10. It came from the memorable broom. So broom stands for judgment. Stories of the Bible, including sudden death to thousands post acts of sexual immorality, sudden death by snake bites post the sin of trying God, etc., summarized by Paul in 1 Corinthians 10:7-10. Okay, the Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians chapter 10:7-10, trying God. Okay. So let's dive in without any further ado to the first scripture that we have, which would be, as I've written down here, Psalms chapter 28, verse 29-32. Okay, and let's read. So again, I'm reading from the Message version. You can read KJV, you can read any of the other versions. Again, it's just the translations. Like I said, there are some that just plain and just straight up make up things and straight up remove things as well. But the versions that we read are the TLV, the Tree of Life version, the CEV, the Contemporary English version, the KJV, the King James version, the MSG, which I'm reading here, the Message version, the AMP, which is the Amplified Bible version, and I started reading the CJB, the Complete Jewish Bible. I started reading that one, and all of those versions say the exact same thing. Just basically, for example, the Amplified version and the Message version, they elaborate more. So feel free to make sure that whatever version you are reading does correspond with the majority. Basically, is that what I'm trying to say? Because there are some out there that they just go off the rails. They don't line up with any other version, basically. Yes, anyways, that's for another video also. Okay, so here we go. Psalms chapter 78, verse 29-32. When God heard that, he was furious. His anger flared against Jacob. He lost his temper with Israel. It was clear they didn't believe God, had no intention of trusting in his help. But God helped them anyway, commanded the clouds and gave orders that opened the gates of heaven. He rained down showers of manna to eat. He gave them the bread of heaven. They ate the bread of the mighty angels. He sent them all the food they could eat. He let east wind break loose from the skies, gave a strong push to the south wind. This time it was birds that rained down, succulent birds, an abundance of birds. He aimed them right for the center of their camp. All round their tents there were birds. They ate and had their fill. He handed them everything they craved on a platter, but their greed knew no bounds. They stuffed their mouths with more and more. Finally, God was fed up. His anger erupted. He cut down their brightest and best. He laid low Israel's finest young men. And can you believe it? They kept right on sinning. All those wonders, and they still wouldn't believe, so their lives wasted away to nothing. nothing to show for their lives but a ghost town. When he cut them down, they came running for help. They turned and pled for mercy. They gave witness that God was their rock, the high God was their redeemer, but they didn't mean a word of it. They lied through their teeth the whole time. They could not have cared less about him, wanted nothing to do with his covenant. So again, you trusting in God. This is when the Israelites were in the desert, leaving Egypt on the way to the promised land, and they ran out of food. So they were blaming Moses, saying that, you know what, oh man, we're going to die out here. We got no food and all these things. And God still, even saving them from Egypt, parting the Red Sea and everything. They saw this with their own eyes. They saw the power and the mighty power of God, and food literally rained from the sky, and they still did not hold dear to their faith, to the belief, it wasn't even just faith and belief. You literally saw these things with your own eyes, so it's not even faith anymore. It. So we have to be careful. Again, this all leads to wanting to please God, following his commandments, because when you do that, you're not going to fall to the temptation. You already know that you are taken care of, and you know why you're fighting temptation, because you want to please God. You want to please your Father. You want him to be proud of you and be happy with you. So you will not fall to those temptations. Okay, let's move on. Next, we have 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9 to 11. Don't overlook the obvious here, friends. With God, one day is as good as 1,000 years. 1,000 years as a day. Okay? God isn't late with his promise as some measure lateness. He is restraining himself on account of you, holding back the end because he doesn't want anyone lost. He's giving everyone space and time to change. This is a serious thing. Okay, before I give any my thoughts, let's continue reading. But when the day of God's judgment does come, it will be unannounced like a thief. The sky will collapse with a thunderous bang, everything disintegrating in a raging inferno, earth and all its works exposed to the scrutiny of judgment. Since everything here today might well be gone tomorrow, do you see how essential it is to live a holy life? Daily expect the day of God, eager for its arrival. The galaxies will burn up and the elements melt down that day, but we'll hardly notice. We'll be looking the other way, ready for the promised new heavens and promised new earth, all landscaped with righteousness. Okay, so this is important, okay, because many people say that, you know what, I know many people right now that say, you know what, they'll come to God when they change themselves, right? Now, what they're not taking into consideration is that they don't know when God's coming, right? Jesus could come, and it's not the time that they decide to change. What they have to realize is to come to Jesus, and Jesus will change you. We cannot change ourselves. I remember saying that when I was younger. I grew up in the church and everything, but I remember saying that, you know what, I'm going to stop doing these type of things before I fully give my heart to the Lord. And it doesn't work like that, because you will keep being tempted continuously, and you're just going to keep doing it because, I'm not ready yet. When I'm ready, then I will change, and then I'll come to God. But you will not. You're tempted, you fall to that temptation, and you continue to fall to that temptation. Like I said in one of the previous videos, the little that satisfied you today will not satisfy you tomorrow. You need more and more and more. You got to make up your mind. You got to come to Jesus Christ. Okay, and he will make that little that satisfied you less and less. You will need it less. It's the opposite, right? When you fall to temptation, you open the door and it comes in. The next day, it's going to be a bigger amount that you need to consume. When you come to Jesus and you follow Jesus, and you want to follow Jesus with all of your heart, that little bit of sin that you keep falling to the temptation, it becomes less and less and less. It's literally an opposite effect, right? We cannot wait. We must come to Jesus. We must do our very best, more than our very best, to follow his commands. And that is what stops you from, because me personally right now, if I go outside, I go for a drive, I go get a coffee or something, and a lot of people there are smoking a cigarette, or some people are smoking the weed and all these things. If I was to fall right there and just say, you know what, it's just going to be one, take a cigarette, smoke it. The next day, I might not do it. The next day, I might not do it. But the other day, I'm going to be like, just one. And then the next day, and just one. And then the next day, and just one. And it's going to end up right back to a pack. It's going to end up right back to a spliff every day, 3 spliffs every day. It's going to end up right back there. But because I want to follow the Lord, when I'm confronted with that temptation, I'm going to be like, Lord, give me strength. This is what I do. Lord, give me strength. My flesh wants it, but I don't want it. I want to please you. That's what I want. Give me strength. And I just get out of there. I get out of there. When the temptation rises, I start talking to God. I start praying, and I get out of there. It's always going to be there, but you got to fight. You have to continue to fight, because time, we don't know when God is going to come back. We do not know. Okay. And when he comes back, that's it. You can't change. When those trumpet sounds, you cannot change. It's too late. When that trumpet sounds, if you are caught falling to temptation, that is it. And remember, even thinking it is the same as doing it. We have to stay in the word and stay in the spirit. We have to. Let's move on. The next scripture we have is 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 7 to 12. And it reads, the same thing could happen to us. We must be on guard so that we never get caught up in wanting our own way as they did. And we must not turn our religion into a circus as they did. First the people partied, then they threw a dance. We must not be sexually promiscuous. They paid for that. Remember, with 23,000 deaths in one day, we must never try to get Christ to serve us instead of us serving him. They tried it, and God launched an epidemic of poisonous snakes. We must be careful not to stir up discontent. Discontent destroyed them. These are all warning makers, danger in our history books, written down so that we don't repeat their mistakes. Our position in the story are parallel. They at the beginning, we at the end. And we are just as capable of messing it up as they were. Don't be so naive and self-confident. You're not exempt. You could fall flat on your face as easily as anyone else. Forget about self-confidence. It's useless. Cultivate God confidence. This is what it comes down to. I've been there too. It's like, oh, I've fallen before. Remember, I'm only doing this because I've been here, and I'm not out of it, because temptation, like I said, is an everyday of your life thing, especially when you're trying to be righteous, or be right, or be good, or be holy, or, be better than you were, be Christ-like, be a true follower of Christ. That's when all temptation, all of that stuff that you were in the world, it just comes on you times 1,000, and you can't be don't be overconfident. Don't even be confident. Be weak. Say you're weak and seek God confidence, like it says here. Say you're weak, because I used to say, you know what? Oh, I'm not going to do this no matter what. If this happens right now, I would just pass that away. I would just pass on that. Oh, if this thing came to me and said this thing and that, I would just not even look that way. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. I fell to those temptations. I fell to those because I was too confident, thinking that I was ready and I could do it on my own. You can't. You can't. It doesn't matter how strong you think you are. It doesn't matter how unbreakable you think your will is. It's unfortunately, it's not. This is only possible having God confidence, as it says here. This is the key right here. It's not our confidence. God confidence. You have to have God confidence. And with that, that's the only way that we can continue to defeat temptation. Remember, temptation will never go away. It's an everyday thing. It's always going to be here. Okay, well, I'm glad to say that we have done it. We have a few scriptures. We have a few, plan complete. Congratulations. Now we may have done these 3 days, and I don't know if you guys have taken notes, but I have made sure that I have taken my notes. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I have taken my notes. Like, I don't play, because it's not just today. So there's day 1, there's day 2, and then today, day 3. When I say I take notes, I mean it. I take notes, because this thing is not just going about today or just the 3 days. You do the plan for the 3 days. No, you go over your notes over and over and over again. You go over your notes over and over and over again. You study them. You go through the scriptures. You continue to study them. This is how we are trying to build up an immune system to temptation. So when it comes, our antibodies, our spiritual antibodies, fight them off. They are not, the temptation and the sin is not welcome into our system, right? So we're here working on a spiritual immune system to temptation, to sin, and we can't be overconfident. We must have God confidence. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are blessed by by this plan. I'm going to be continuing this, doing these plans, right? This one was for porn temptation, and I would like to use this one for all temptations. So it's fighting temptation. That's what this plan was. 3 days, devotionals, and a few scriptures to go through, study them, pray, stay in the Spirit, stay in the Word. We can do this. We can fight temptation, and we can please the Lord, which is the goal. We don't want that trumpet to sound and it's too late. We don't want to hear that, right? I want all of you to be there. I want to be there. So that's the whole purpose of this, to share with you guys, right? So as always, I'm your humble host, Picaso. Thanks for joining in. Peace. I'm out.